Hello, I am Dr. Toya Hodges, and welcome to Module 3 of Developing a Personal SWOT Analysis. In today's module, we are going to be discussing our weaknesses. Okay, so when we think about our weaknesses, as I said, this is where people have so much listed, and I'm like, okay, we have our weaknesses, and this seems to be easy for us. It's very easy for us to come up with our weaknesses. And so when you think about your weaknesses in your 6 categories, I want you to look at what do you feel you could do better? Okay, now this again, we're sitting judgment and criticism and all that over here. We're just going to let it sit there. We're going to tell it to pause. Okay, and we're going to bring in the loving, compassionate version of us to do this. So, what are some of the things that you feel you could do better? What do you deem? Okay, and that's very important. What do you deem others are doing better than you? Okay, and what do you need to face up to? Accountability is a very big thing for us to navigate through when we're trying to get to where we want to get. Because quite often it's very easy for us to fall into the victim mentality and, oh, everything works out for them and not for me. It's very easy for us to fall into that. Trust me, I know. Not only did I have to navigate it myself, I help people every day try to navigate out of that mentality. It's very easy for us to get there. Okay. Now, when we think about these weaknesses, okay, when you think about what others are that you feel are doing better than you, be honest and realistic about who you are. And I'm going to give you an example. My son is an amazing artist and photographer and videographer and amazing in music. I can't sing a lick, okay? I can't draw. I can't even draw a straight line. So if I was to compare myself to him, I'm never going to measure up, ever. Now, I don't believe we should compare ourselves to anybody because we don't know the battles that those people had to fight to get to where they're at. We don't know anything about them. And this goes back to where we look at life where we always think the grass is greener on the other side. And in the world of social media, everybody's going to always show you the best version of things. And that might not be the real reality. Now, the reason I do this, and again, with my clients, one of the things that I tell them to do, and you can do this as well, is I have them list all the people that they admire, all the people that are part of their lives. And then I ask them to list all the things that they love about that person and admire about that person, and then list all the things that they're not fond of. Okay? And the reason I make them do that is because we as individuals can identify things in others that is also within us. Okay? If I look at this person and I'm like, wow, she's this, this, and this, I see that, I admire that about her, then I turn to myself and say, where do I possess those same qualities within me? It might show up differently. But me comparing myself, that's not what we're doing here. I'm just saying, if you see somebody, for example, my husband, perfect candidate. My husband was a professional soccer player. He spent his entire life having self-control, self-discipline. I didn't possess those things. And so when we started living together because he was still playing. So we were distant for a while because he played in another country. So when he finally came and we were living together, I started just watching him. I'm like, man, he can sit there and say he's never going to drink a soda again and stop that moment and never pick up a soda. I will stop for a day or two and then I'm like, oh, that looks so good. Let me get it. Right. So I started watching him like, okay, let me learn how to develop self-control and consistency by watching someone that does it. Let me ask him how he developed that mindset. It's not that I'm looking at him and judging him by saying, man, look at you. You have no consistency. You have no self-discipline. I'm not going to beat myself up. If it's something that I know I can attain, then I'm going to learn how to do it by observing and researching and figuring out and implementing ways that I can do it. So that's what that question is about. It's not oh, they're so much better a leader than I am. I could never be that kind of leader. How do you know? You don't know the demons they get up with every day to fight, to be that person. Talk to them. Ask them to mentor you. Ask them, like, hey, how did you become so strong in this? Or how is it that you're always on time and I feel like I can never get anywhere on time? Or how is it that when you walk in a room, people just come and just talk to you? Like, how do you do that? Ask. Okay. And then be honest with yourself about what you need to face up to about you for real. Okay? Because so often we try to ignore those things. This is the time when you need to be accountable. Because yes, we've all had things happen to us in our childhood, and we've seen how our parents raised us, and we had certain bosses that treated us a certain way. We've had rejection, we've had pain, we've had all of these things happen to us. But if we hold on to it and we don't do anything to shift it and make it better, then that's on us. And so sometimes we have to face that person in the mirror and be honest with ourselves first. Okay? Again, we are not here to beat ourselves up. That is not today. In fact, that needs to be never. Because one of the things is that I live on and I stand by is if I'm saying something to myself, and if I couldn't say that to someone I loved, then I can't say it to me because I love me. If I was saying something to me, or if I was saying something to me and I heard somebody say that to my children or my husband or my family or my friends, and my first instinct is to call the one at the table in the black outfit to come handle that situation, I don't need to say it to me either. I don't. Because I have to love me first. Okay. All right. So what are some examples of our weakness? Okay. So if we feel that we lack a specific skill or knowledge in a particular area, and this limits our ability to perform tasks and pursue certain opportunities, then that's considered a weakness. Okay. Doesn't mean that we can't go change that. Right? Procrastination. You may have a tendency to procrastinate, which can lead to missed deadlines or incomplete work. Now, what I know about procrastination is attached to a fear, and it's also attached to not feeling confident in something that needs to get done. And it also is things that we really don't want to do. And if we wait to the last minute, what ends up happening is we rush through it. We know it's not the best that it can be, right? Because we rush through it just to get it done. And then we turn around and beat ourselves up for it. And that's not a win-win for anybody. Okay. Difficulty with time management. You may also struggle with managing your time effectively, which can lead to feeling overwhelmed and not being able to prioritize tasks. Lack of confidence. You may lack confidence in your ability, which can hold you back from taking risks and pursuing new opportunities. Poor communication skills. You may have difficulty communicating clearly or effectively, which can hinder your ability to work with others and share your ideas. If you're inflexible, you may have difficulty adapting to change, which can make it very challenging to work in new and unpredictable situations. Procrastination. You have a tendency to be overly critical of yourself and others, which can lead to unrealistic expectations and disappointments, which also is married to procrastination. Like when you look at perfectionism, that typically comes from some things that we experienced in childhood. Like if we grew up feeling like nothing we ever did was good enough, then we're always striving for perfectionism. And perfectionism doesn't exist. I promise you it doesn't, because the one thing that I've known and I have so much proof about is only I was able to see what didn't go according to the way I wanted it to go. No one else can really see that. And if you push that on others, then that makes people not want to do things for you. Because if they feel like no matter what I do, it's never good enough, and all they're going to do is redo it, then why am I going to do it? And then you're sitting there mad because nobody's helping you. Okay. Difficulty with teamwork. You may struggle to work effectively in a team environment, which can limit your ability to collaborate with others and share responsibilities. So think about that. If you have a difficulty working in a work environment with a team, then why do you think you're going to be able to work as a team member in a marriage or in a family or in a friendship? Okay. Poor organization. You may struggle staying organized, which can lead to missed deadlines, forgotten tasks, or disorganization. That one was a big one for me. And it took me a while. I had to try several different things because I do have ADHD. So I had to create things that work with the way my mind worked. Okay. And it took me a while to finally get a system that worked for me. And now that I have that system, it's just like a breath of fresh air. So even some of these things that you're creating, you can try it, but look at this as an experiment, because I would try certain things and I'm like, and then it's like, yep, nope, that's not working. Okay, well, what is working in this situation? Okay, what's not working? Okay, this part isn't working. So what can I do to make that part work? And that's why it's very important for you as an individual to create these things yourself. Okay. When I'm working with clients, I don't tell them how I do certain things, because you need to create it for what works for you. Because then if I tell you what I do and then you try to do it and it doesn't work for you, then you feel like, well, it works for her. Why can't it work for me? Well, I must not be good enough, or I must be doing something wrong, or whatever. And then you're disappointed and then you're beating yourself up. That's a no-go. Figure out what works for you. Okay. Your lack of assertiveness. You may have difficulty asserting yourself or standing up for your ideas, which can limit your ability to advocate for yourself and make your voice heard. Okay. That's a big one, because a lot of people suffer from that because they're fearful. Because before, something could have happened where they were assertive and they got beat down for it. So now they've created this wall, like, okay, well, I'm not doing that no more because the last time I did that, happened. But that was back then. Those were different people. You're a different person. You're not the same. So don't hold on to it. Okay. Now, the other thing I do like to use when we're talking about weaknesses is also I like to look at them as warnings. Okay. I want you to also pay attention to the warnings that you've set up. So my analogy of this is say, you know how the new cars have lane assist. Okay. So we're driving down the road, and if we violate that lane, aka are also our boundaries and our values, right? If we violate that and it starts beeping, hence, if I'm doing something that's violating my values and I'm doing something that's violating my Lord, what was it saying? My anyway, if I'm violating my boundaries and my then my warning light's going to go off, right? And so if I'm violating my boundaries and my values and I'm feeling negative feelings, then that's a warning. Okay. If I'm feeling rejected, if I'm feeling guilt, if I'm feeling shame, if I'm feeling resentment, if I'm feeling all of these negative emotions, those are my warnings going off, trying to get my attention, saying, hello, no, you're in the wrong lane. You are violating your lane. You're violating your boundaries. You're violating your values. And so those feelings represent our warnings that we've installed in ourselves. Okay. So when you start to feel these things, take a step back and be like, okay, what am I doing here that is making me feel resentful? What boundary or what value is being violated that is making me feel this way? And then rectify the situation. Okay. So often when clients come work with me, their life is full of chaos. They're miserable and they don't know how to get out of it. And these are some of the tools that we use. Like, okay, is your warning light going off? If you're feeling these feelings, then your warning lights are going off saying, hey, you're in the wrong lane. You need to get in your lane. Because if we're in our lane of alignment toward our goals and the things that we're trying to achieve, it's going to be a lot smoother. Now, are we going to hit a pothole every once in a while? Absolutely. Are we going to hit a speed bump every once in a while? Absolutely. That's just life. The beauty in doing this is that when you do hit those things, you can get right back on track. Because how many people, first of the year, you gung ho, I got all these things that I'm going to do, I'm going to accomplish this year. And the first moment you get derailed, that's it. It takes you months to get back on track. Or if you get back on track at all. Or how many people say every Monday, well, on Monday, I'm going to start this. I was a habitual Monday person. So that's the beauty of putting in your internal system that's telling you when you're violating your values and your boundaries. Okay. So if these negative feelings and emotions are showing up, then these are your warnings. And the things that you're looking at that you're procrastinating on, dig into why you're really procrastinating. If it's for fear or feeling like you really don't know what you're doing, then own that. Okay. When you fear things, I always get excited when I fear things. Now, not my safety, that's a different type of fear. Like if I'm outside and the dog starts chasing me, that's different. Or if I see a snake, that's different. Or if I'm somewhere and somebody pulls up a gun, that's different. That's danger right there. Danger and fear are two different things, right? But if I fear doing something and get excited, you know why? Because I know on the other side of that fear is something amazing. I know that. And it's never been wrong. Never. Okay. So when I fear something and I feel the fear, I immediately stop and say, okay, what is the worst that can happen? And I list it. I list what's the worst thing that could happen. And I'm like, okay, well, in my mind, one of the worst things that can happen is I die. Well, if I'm dead, I don't know anymore, right? But normally that's not what the worst thing that can happen is. So when I identify what the worst thing that can happen is, then I ask myself, what can give write down 3 things that I can do to prevent that from happening. Then I don't fear it anymore. Because if the worst thing can happens, then I already have a plan of how to navigate through it so I don't fear it. Because I already know how I'm going to figure it out. Right. And trust you. Because if you're listening to this, here's 2 things you know for certain about yourself. Is no matter what has happened, you've made it through it because you're still breathing, right? And when you put your mind to something, you've always accomplished it. So if you know for certain those 2 things, then you're unstoppable. Put that in your mind, right? I'll see y'all on our next module, which is our opportunities. See you soon.